Hello, welcome. Thank you for joining us on this edition of News 2. I'm Sandra Gumansing. All eyes and ears in the territory were on the Senate Monday night, where Governor Kenneth Mapp delivered his second State of the Territory address. This time, the governor spoke with less gloom and doom and with more optimism about the territory's future. News 2's April Knight has more.
I'm heartened to report to you that the government of the United States Virgin Islands is receding from the brink of financial collapse.
That was Governor Kenneth Mapp in his second State of the Territory address Monday night, reversing what he said last year, which has become a theme throughout 2015, that the territory was on the verge of fiscal collapse. The governor reported progress in multiple areas.
Our government will end the fiscal year without an operating deficit,
including the sale of Avenza and $207 million cash on hand for the government. A striking contrast, he said, from the time he took office, when the government only had $32 million on hand. The governor also touted the recent pay increases for government employees and announced additional raises in certain departments.
We want to ensure that as many employees as possible see some upward mobility in their take-home pay. The Lieutenant Governor and I have made a public commitment to pay what is owed as the public treasury permits. We will not hold your hard-earned wage increases hostage, waiting for our re-election cycle.
The crowd got excited about a new hotel being planned for St. Croix, as well as the push for locally grown produce in public school lunches. The governor also said that the infusion of cash for GRS was not a fix. It merely bought the system more time. The governor did seem more jovial and generally optimistic in this State of the Territory than last year's, but he did caution that the territory is not out of the woods yet.
Our sense of hopelessness and the dire times we have been experiencing is abated. But we must realize that full recovery will require continued hard work.
Reporting for News 2, I'm April Knight.
Governor Mapp also announced the nomination of Dr. Michelle Davis to the long-vacant Commissioner of Health post. Davis, who is currently the Regional Administrator for the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, is on loan to the territory for 2 years. Here's more.
Dr. Davis has worked as a public health professional in a variety of positions at the federal, state, and municipal level. The plan is not only to turn our public health services and provide and roll out real mental health services for those in our community, and maternal and child health care services, and all of the lack of data that we collect with the demographics of health care in the Virgin Islands, but to also be able to train and provide guidance to the next generation of leaders for the Department of Health.
Now, the night belonged to the Mapp-Potter administration, but the agenda put forth by the governor requires support and buy-in from a majority of the lawmakers comprising the 31st legislature. A recurring concern echoed throughout the chamber after the speech had a familiar ring to it. What will be the true cost of implementing the administration's ambitions agenda? News 2's Monica Jonigan spoke to senators after the address.
Governor Mapp characterized his team's aggressive approach to the territory's recovery as comprehensive and the short-term fiscal achievements as responsible for putting the Virgin Islands economy on the road to solid financial footing. Trumpeting, for example, the 590 government employees added to the system over the past year and the 876 new government jobs funded in the latest budget agreement now seeking applicants, in addition to $21 million in salary increases for over 3,400 current government employees.
What came to mind when he said that 590 hired? Well, he did not compare that to how many were terminated. So I don't think they were all new hires, and maybe that math needed to be done.
When we looked at doing the FY16 budget, we looked at some of the department and agencies that really was paying a lot of money in overtime and different costs like that, and say we have to provide extra money for these department and agencies so they can ramp up and hire more personnel, so at least they can reduce their overhead costs.
So it's something that this legislature will have to collectively, work towards. And these numbers are startling. I'm still trying to come to grips with the numbers that have been brought to light here by the governor this evening.
There's always going to be resistance to change, but I think that is one of the biggest challenges that we have in the Virgin Islands.
I'm on page with that. I just don't know what details he has relative to borrowing. But again, it comes back to the same thing. Where is the money to sustain these increases? Where is the money to sustain these new hires? We know that the current salary offers for these positions that are being offered are not attracting the personnel. So at some point, they're going to have to increase those wages. And he's now proposed to increase several other departments. I would like that to happen also. I just don't know his specific plan and how he plans to do that. So that was absent from it. But I believe it was his job to sort of raise the optimism of the community, and I think he attempted to do that.
Monica Jonigan, News 2.
Now, the State of the Territory address provided residents with much needed information. On the street, residents stated that they were happy that the territory was doing better economically, but some were concerned about pay issues and support for the teachers employed at the Virgin Islands Department of Education.
Last night, Governor Kenneth E. Mapp provided insight on his plans for the Virgin Islands in his State of the Territory speech at the Earl B. Otley Legislative Chambers on St. Thomas. Viewers were informed that the territory was in economic and financial recovery and that there were 876 available positions ready to be filled. TV2 took to the streets and asked residents about their take on the governor's State of the Territory speech.
Well, I'm glad to know that there are a lot of job opportunities for residents, especially for St. Croix. And my thought is I'm quite sure that the governor will include individual disabilities as part of that employment pool.
I agreed with everything that he said because we are moving forward.
In mid-January, Governor Mapp stated that several agencies were receiving pay increases and the Department of Education was not mentioned. Bettina LaRock, the first vice president of the AFT, was a protester outside.
We thought education would have been at the top of that agenda, and it wasn't. So we are very displeased with that, and we needed to protest last night at the State of the Territory.
While AFT members were protesting outside, the governor announced in his speech that he would be providing pay increases to the employees of the Virgin Islands Department of Education.
I haven't had anyone from the Department of Education since the State of the Territory reach out to me as the president of the union regarding the salary increases. I do know that in addition to the 2010-2011 salary increases that we have outstanding, we do have a retro included in that from 2011 to current. I'm just hoping that, our teachers, support staff, and paraprofessionals are brought up to date in terms of their salary increases. And I do hope that those salaries are comparable to that of their brothers and sisters in the United States.
Stephanie Brown, News 2.
Now, there were also many protesters with signs in support of keeping WAPA CEO Hugo Hodge on board. It seems Hugo Hodge will be leaving the authority earlier than expected. We reported last week that the WAPA board voted not to continue Hodge's contract by another 4 years. At the time, his contract was scheduled to end in June. On Tuesday, WAPA announced that by unanimous vote, the board voted to end Hodge's contract with the authority effective at the end of this week. The board has started looking for an executive search firm to look for candidates for the executive director position. In the interim, WAPA's chief financial officer, Julio Reimer, will be the acting executive director. Well, after former Governor John DeYoung announced that the VI government agreed to make a deal with him on the controversial case now known as Mufflegate, the Department of Justice followed suit with a press conference breaking down the details of that deal. News2's April Knight has that story.
Charges against former Governor John DeYoung and former PFA Chief Julio Francis have been dropped. That's according to Attorney General Claude Walker, whose office filed a motion to dismiss on Tuesday.
Under the agreement with Governor DeYoung, he has paid restitution to the government of the Virgin Islands in the total sum of $350 $80,000.
The former governor also made an announcement ahead of the AG that he had reached a deal with the government, resulting in the dropped charges. In August, the former governor was arrested after a judge found probable cause on allegations that he used federal monies meant for roadways towards security measures around his private residence in Mufflegate. A 2010 Inspector General's report valued those improvements at $490,000. According to Walker, DeYoung has returned $75,000 worth of security equipment back to the VI government. That equipment, he said, is now being used by the VIPD on both districts. As for the remaining $35,000, that will be written off as a discount for the former governor.
The Department of Justice granted Governor DeYoung a further reduction of $35,000 in recognition of the fact that in the past, many other governors have used public funds for security upgrades at their private residence.
Walker denies that the current administration's effort to go after former Governor John DeYoung was a political vendetta.
An independent judge. It just wasn't simply the Attorney General filing these charges. A judge looked at the evidence and independently found probable cause to go forward.
Reporting for News 2, I'm April Knight.
Last week, Governor Kenneth Mapp approved 2 measures to support efforts of local law enforcement. He signed into law Bill number 31-0145, which will fund the first phase of a forensic crime lab. Local law enforcement officials have long stated that sending evidence away for forensic analysis is both problematic and costly. The second measure, Bill number 31-018, appropriates $100,000 to the Virgin Islands Police Department's Criminal Investigation Impress Fund. The governor said that in order to effectively solve cases, the VIPD must have a source of money that can be rapidly accessed. Funds will be used primarily for protecting and transporting witnesses and paying rewards as required. Keeping our eye on the economy, let's take a look at the New York Stock Exchange. Taking a look at the numbers there, you can see everything up. The Dow 281, NASDAQ 49, S&P 500 26. Coming up on News 2, Marvin Pickering, who is the director of the Virgin Islands Bureau of Internal Revenue, reminds all Virgin Islands employers that they are required to submit Form W2VI. Details on that, plus crime reports and how you can help police. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Marvin Pickering, who is the director of the Virgin Islands Bureau of Internal Revenue, reminds all Virgin Islands employers that they are required to submit Form W2VI, which is the U.S. Virgin Islands wage and tax statement for employment in 2015, to every employee by February 1st, 2016. Failure to provide an employee with Form W2VI by February 1st is subject to a civil penalty of $50 for each return. In certain cases, criminal penalties may also apply. Form W2, which is used for employment in the continental United States, cannot be used for Virgin Islands employment. Form W2VI must be used to report wages paid to every employee for work performed in the Virgin Islands during 2015. You can call them for more information. Raymond Mathern, 48, of St. Croix, pleaded guilty Monday in district court on St. Croix to 1 count of manufacturing a controlled substance, specifically marijuana. As part of his plea, Mathern admitted that on June 26, 2014, he was growing a total of 69 marijuana plants near his property on St. Croix. At the conclusion of that hearing, Magistrate Judge George Cannon continued his release pending sentencing. Mathern is facing a maximum sentence of 5 years in prison and $250,000 fine and a $100 special assessment. On Monday, January 25th at 11:29 a.m., the 911 emergency call center received a call requesting an ambulance for an unresponsive scuba diver. Preliminary information gathered by officers and detectives show that the victim, a 67-year-old woman, had been part of a scuba diving excursion at Salt River, accompanied by her husband and a friend. After their dive, the victim began to complain of experiencing some difficulty in breathing, collapsed, and fell unconscious. Cardiopulmonary resuscitation was administered while the call was placed to the emergency call center. The victim subsequently passed away at the Juan Luis Hospital and was identified as Kathleen Wright of California. The incident is under active investigation. Last Friday, January 22nd, at roughly 8:08 p.m., police say they were dispatched by the 911 emergency call center to a residence located in Estate Bavoni in response to a report of a robbery. According to the victim, she had just parked her car when two black males armed with handguns rushed her and yelled, "Give me your bag." As she attempted to hand over her handbag, the suspects ripped the bag off her shoulder and ran through a shortcut leading towards the Bavoni housing community. This case is currently still under active investigation by the Criminal Investigation Bureau. Anyone with information about this crime, you may notify the Major Crimes Division at 340-714-9823, extension 5617, any of the numbers there, or Crime Stoppers. Grove Place Weed and Seed cordially invites the residents of St. Croix to its upcoming community town hall meeting scheduled to take place on Thursday, January 28th at the Eulalie Rivera Elementary School located in Estate Grove Place at 6 p.m. Community partners to present their programs include Office of the General, Mr. James Latham, VIPD Police Commissioner's Office, the 30th Legislature of the Virgin Islands, Novels Francis, and much, much more. After a rigorous application process, 12 of Blue Muckle Elementary School students, 5th grade students, were selected to engage in an 8-year journey in the Caterpillar Project, the second major project of the locally based organization Project Promise. According to Muckle School Assistant Principal Delicia Seeley Espinosa, the Caterpillar Project was officially launched on Monday, January 25th. This multi-dimensional after-school program has pledged additional support and services to the 12 Lou Muckle School at-risk students in the form of mentorship, tutoring, career exploration, personal wellness, creative expression, cultural awareness, life coaching, and family support. Coast Guard rescue crews and the crew of Good Samaritan sailing vessel rescued 3 French boaters from a sinking catamaran Sunday morning, approximately 25 nautical miles southeast of Mona Island, Puerto Rico. The rescued men were transited from the Dominican Republic to the island of St. Martin at approximately 2 a.m. Sunday when their catamaran began taking on water and started to sink. Coast Guard watchstanders at Sector San Juan received a mayday, recovered the 3 French boaters from on top of the partially submerged vessel. They were all wearing life jackets. Well, the massive East Coast winter storm had brought heavy amounts of snow to northeast states, and 3 days ago, more than 10,000 airline flights were canceled, including flights that were supposed to land in the territory. At this time, all flights scheduled to arrive to the Virgin Islands have landed, with the just one delay, according to the live tracking maps with Flight View. There are more scheduled flights that should be arriving this evening on St. Croix between 6 p.m. to 7:30. Meanwhile, at least 34 deaths have been blamed on the weather. Many people have been trying to dig themselves out. One big question remains: where to put all that snow? Mary Maloney has details.
Millions are digging, bulldozing and plowing the snow away. The deadly winter storm caused crashes and roof collapses. New York is bouncing back quickly.
Things are not entirely normal today, but a lot of the city is operating well.
But it's a different story in Washington, where the mayor warns the district will be dealing with snow all week.
While we have made some progress, there is still a lot more to do.
D.C. schools remain closed and federal buildings are shut down. The House of Representatives canceled votes for the whole week. Meanwhile, air travelers are feeling the pain as airports slowly return to life. 12,000 flights have been canceled, including about 1,800 on Monday.
I had 8 cancellations, but they've been rolling all the cancellations over. So I'm thrilled to be getting out on time, headed back to New Orleans.
I'm Mary Maloney reporting.
And speaking of the weather, that's coming up next. We'll be right back.